Anytime something's on a headline, it is trying to tell you, hey, stare at my right hand so you never see what my left hand is doing over here. And you need to look a lot deeper. And for somebody who works in the government like I have for many, many years, it goes so beyond that. A lot of people in Hollywood practice a lot of rituals in exchange for power and have had enough evidence that it's true and that it works. If I was to say that catastrophic events are coming, and what if part of people being deported back to their mainlands to be with the roots of their families would be very, very important?
Hi, everybody. It's your girl E, and this is another episode of the Vision Rebirth podcast. This is a podcast where we explore life changing stories of near death experiences, outer body experiences, divine dreams, meditations, and encounters with higher beings. And today we have a special guest. She is known as a seer and oracle who has been a consultant to high-level government officials and known for providing guidance and advice for catastrophic events. She has been on networks like National Geographic, CNN, BBC, and the Discovery Channel. But don't let the spiritual gifts fool you, because she's also a trained sniper, NRA certified firearms instructor, and a survival instructor. She is the amazing Robyn. How are you doing, Robyn?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm doing fantastic. It's a beautiful day. I'm excited about what kinds of off the chart things we're going to talk about.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited too. So you're a oracle seer. Like what is that? Is that basically just another word for psychic? Like is that how it works for you?
I hate the word psychic. I quite frankly, I hate all the words. I hate the word oracle. Um, a seer, I don't mind that. People have labeled me in a lot of different things, and quite frankly, there's nothing special or different about me. The only thing that sets me apart is I seek after it. And I've put a lot of time and a lot of effort into developing my gifts. I've had a lot of training, and not just in the spiritual woo-woo realm, but in tangible training. That's why I'm a firearm instructor and a survival instructor, and that's why I'm a holistic doctor and study quantum physics, because all of it matters. But when it comes down to my spiritual gifts, since I was a young child, I was always able to see things from the past, current, and future. And, through the years, I used it in different ways and I didn't know what it was. And as I got more trained into it, I used to advise quite a bit for, corporations or small governments for catastrophic events. And so that's why I have a lot of training, is because what I would see in the future, if it caused me anxiety, which a lot of it did,
Hmm.
I would train for it. I would train
Interesting.
for it and I would get the skill sets that I needed to feel prepared, or as prepared as I could be. But I also wanted to give good counsel. If I'm advising a bunch of special forces, then I want to know how I can advise them on shooting tactics, and strategy, or whatever it is, and recon, or, so those are all important to me. So I have a big spectrum of skill sets mixed with spiritual gifts. And I wish that
Okay.
everybody would do that, because I think too often people in my industry are, oh, I'm psychic and I'm talking to my angels, and they just like blurt
Right.
out some kind of woo woo stuff. And it's dangerous in the sense of they don't give themselves time to have confirmation.
Hmm.
And confirmation is huge with spiritual gifts. I'm a brat. And even if God himself tells me things, I'm like, cool, you better prove it to me.
Hmm.
And I want multiple
Interesting.
confirmations of things. That's even in the scriptures, it talked about 3 witnesses over and over again. There needed to be witnesses
Confirmation.
to events. And that's how you know if you're not crazy. And we need that. And so that's why I have a hard time with words like psychics and mediums and all of these things, because there's a stigma. that comes with that. And I don't like to
Yeah,
be
it is.
compared to people in that industry.
Now, why haven't you like used your powers to like guess the winning lottery numbers or like who's going to win like the NBA finals and
Who says I haven't?
Oh, okay. Well, let me know. Tell me the let me know the winning lottery number so I can win or place a good bet.
Well, here's what's kind of crappy about that for me is that it works for me to do that for others, but not for myself.
Interesting. Do you
Yeah.
know why?
I mean, I I advise huge corporations and big money on their investments
Yeah,
every week. I sit on the board of 4 different
interesting.
companies because of it. And I can advise them and I'm about 99% accurate. I might be off by one little detail or something like that, but overall, I mean, I have a proven track record. And or I can go to Vegas with clients and be like, "Go play at that table." And it's great. But I can't do it for myself. I've tried. I've tried so hard. And it's so
Interesting.
frustrating because there are times that I really needed my gifts. Like, let me give you an example. My dad, just a couple years ago, was missing for 2 months,
Oh
and
wow.
search and rescue was looking for him, and we didn't know if he was dead or alive, and I didn't know if he was dead or alive,
Mm,
and I couldn't find him, and I work on missing cases all the time.
really?
And
Okay.
you talk about pure frustration of not being able to use gifts that you've developed and been accurate for everybody else, but I couldn't do it for myself, which is another reason why when I read people, they're not allowed to tell me anything. So that way I don't have biased information. And I think it has a lot to do with that. When it's me personally, I'm being biased. I have agendas, I
Okay.
have angles, I have things that I'm looking
Ah,
for, desiring. I could be blocking myself from the bigger picture. And also, I am not exempt. I gotta experience shit just like everybody else. I have to
yeah.
be betrayed and lied to just like everybody else in my personal life. I can't avoid things like that, and I'm glad because it would manipulate my free will and choice. But
Hmm.
yeah, I wish I could, use it for creation of wealth, that's for sure. I have to work hard just like everybody else.
Now, you've worked with like Hollywood elites, and I'm very curious about that and the work you do in that, especially with all that's going on right now
Ugh.
in that industry. So, can you talk about some of the work you do in that industry?
You know, it's all over the place, so it would be better if you were more specific about what you wanna know, what you're asking me.
Okay, what's going on with Hollywood then right now? Like you got the Diddy's coming out and that's going crazy, and you got like it seems like it's a lot of exposure. It almost seems like to me, I'm looking
Mhm.
at it seems like they're going crazy. Like to me, I'm just looking at it and it's like a lot of these celebrities are going like crazy, like losing their minds. That's how I'm looking at it. Like,
No, here's the truth, okay? There are many tribes, and think of just like in the scriptures, okay? How it talked about the 12 tribes, actually it was 13 tribes. But think of tribes as families, and families are different organizations, just like the cartels are a family, aren't they? They come from
yeah,
a family line, okay? We have that with royal families and, we have it with the elite, and some people call it, the Illuminati or, the Freemasons, all these things, right? But really it comes from family lines. And those family lines have really depleted through the years. And so those power lines have had to branch out. And what better and strategically to branch out with people with influence? And they have. And so those family lines, as much as they tried to keep them as pure as possible, they've been diluted. And anytime there's dilution, there becomes untruth. Would you agree with that?
Okay, yeah, yeah, I can see
When
that.
if I teach my lineage a ritual of truth and light that had power to it, the power of activation, my spiritual gifts, my spiritual senses, maybe 10 generations down from here, it's going to get diluted.
Yeah,
It's not going to
that's
be
yeah.
practiced the right way. It's not going to be practiced in the right way of light and truth and power. Other things will be adopted into it. And so that's a lot of what's going on is a lot of them have been introduced to some of those lines, some of those lineages, some of those powers, but have been very much diluted. And in exchange, they get to do some of that whatever they want. And once they have
Interesting.
evidence that it doesn't matter, that they're untouchable because they've been told some bullshit about it, it gets a little out of hand. But the truth is that there are opposition in all things. So we should never be chunking anything all into one category, like saying Hollywood. That's a big label. There is opposition in Hollywood, and what that means is that there's good and there's light and darkness. And I'm not saying that
Duality.
light and darkness aren't equally as not important, because they are. So they all have a place, and it's equally as important as the light. But what I can say is that a lot of people in Hollywood practice a lot of rituals in exchange for power and have had enough evidence that it's true and that it works. And what they had to exchange for that sometimes, didn't come from a very clean source of information. And so it gets caught up. And I don't have any judgment about it. I'm very neutral, only because I can see how they got there. This is not the core of who they are. It's just like a serial killer. It's not the core of who they were. There was a change that occurred. And so I focus more on the change. When did it occur? Why? When did this change in the brain? What happened? What were they thinking? What kind of evidence did they get? And how did they get here? That's more important to me than what's happening right at the moment.
Hmm.
And it helps
So
me to
is
see
that is
things in
that
a
kind of like
very
healing? Is
kind
that
of
still in the healing? That's what it sounds like.
everything can be healed. The darkest of the darkest is not that dark. That's Hollywood. That's what movies and scriptures and religion have taught you. Um, because even the darkest of dark, anybody who knows their scriptures hears God hanging out with Lucifer all the time, and they're
Right?
having
Huh, how about that?
conversations, and they're obviously have some kind of bond there. And so, I think people are so quick to put labels on things and just cast it out as it's either this or that. And I think that's where we're missing understanding, and we're missing solutions because of that.
Interesting. What about in terms of like world news and like world politics? Because you've also worked in government and for example, right now Trump is wreaking havoc in the U.S. and people are saying
Do you
this
think
is
so?
um me personally, I have a different perspective of it. Just from the different
Okay.
things that I'm learning. Me personally, I think that what's going on is dark, but I feel like it's happening to bring more people into the light, into as like a catalyst. That's what I like
What do
just
you
think is happening.
Okay. Can you give
But
me
that's
an
just my
example of what
theory.
That's okay.
Um
But what
like
can you give me an
I,
example of what you think is dark?
I guess like for example, everything that's going on. I know like in LA they have like these riots going on and it's this fear of ICE, right? And this fear of, immigrants and this it's just this fear. And I think that what's going to happen is, I don't know what event or what is going to happen, but it's causing. I feel like it's going to cause us all to think more about each other. Like whatever happens, I think is going to cause us to think more about each other. So,
That's
it's
very, very smart of you to say. Anytime people ask me about catastrophic events in the future, they always say like, well, since you know these things and you see these things, why don't you do anything to prevent them? And one of the biggest comments I say is that because it unites us.
yeah,
Catastrophic events, not that riots in LA are catastrophic, but events like that and even more intensity do unify humans.
yeah,
And so they all have a place. But also, what if I was to say that catastrophic events are coming? And what if part of people being deported back to their mainlands to be with the roots of their families would be very, very important? And that maybe this isn't a dark or evil thing or an inconvenience or anything, because the light has its hand in everything equally.
yeah. All things work together.
They do. Okay.
Yeah,
So it would be, if you've noticed, people have been migrating all around the world from a fire in Oregon or a fire in California and having to move here or
yeah,
moving back home where they originally came from, where their family is, their parents, their
yeah.
grandparents, their uncles, all of the stuff. And that's been happening all around the world. And so if there's more force in this, it forces us to get back to where we came from and fix it where we were
Hmm.
versus fleeing to somewhere else and making a shitstorm there.
Mm.
So there's beauty in all things. And I think that too often we're always looking to blame the one, right? And that's just not true. But I also want to mention this behind the scenes. Okay. And here's the honest to God truth. Black Lives Matter riots, the Ferguson riots, the LA riots currently, 90% of those people are being paid. The Capitol, run in, all that, it's all BS, guys.
It's a show.
And you know what? It's just something, the bigger issue in our world right now is the matter of discernment.
Hmm.
And for those of you that don't truly understand the level of discernment or what that is the ability to know truth from deceit.
Hmm.
And it's a natural bestowed blessing upon all of us, but we have to ask for it. We have to literally invoke it upon us. It's a spiritual gift that was given to all of us, but not everybody asks for it or activates it. And this is a huge thing of asking God or whatever you believe in spiritually to give you discernment. And then when you have discernment and you feel like, hey, something's not right here, or, the story or whatever, you get that feeling, then you go to God or you go to your spirit realm and you say, give me 3 confirmations if this is true.
Hmm.
And so when I say comments like this on any podcast, or I talk about the future events or how God became God, or it doesn't matter what I say. What matters is if you listening knows how to feel truth and then investigate it and find confirmations
Hmm.
of that truth. Because all
Hmm.
of us on every book, every coach, every mentor, every TV show, every video now, because now we can't even trust videos now because of AI.
AI.
That is
Yep.
the biggest core issue right now is people are not going to know the truth.
What's real and what's fake? Yeah.
And
Interesting.
that can only be told by a spiritual sense, a spiritual intelligence. So that is the most critical thing right now. Because what you're seeing in media, what you're seeing, look at all those photo ops right now
Yeah.
they're perfect photo ops, just like in the Capitol. It's ridiculous. Perfect, like with the
You're
flag
right.
standing there. Come on, guys. We're
You're
not doing
right.
this.
You're right. You know
Look at
what?
the
You're right. That's a good
similarities
point.
here.
That's a
You
good
have
point. Like
to,
all those
when
pictures were like like wow, like it almost
perfect,
some of those pictures look like inspirational, like
right.
interesting.
And so did the Capitol ones, remember?
Yeah.
and some of the
Yeah.
other riots. So you really need to pay attention. Another question you can ask yourself is, where do all those rocks and the bricks come from? Are they just taking sledgehammers downtown and, breaking them off buildings? I mean, is anybody thinking about that logically? It's the same thing
Yeah.
with the Black Lives Matter riots. There were
Mm.
pallets and pallets dropped off of bricks and rocks on every corner. Who did that?
Hmm.
It's just easy things to look into, you guys. Don't buy into it.
Yeah.
When stuff like this is on the headlines, anytime something's on a headline, it is trying to tell you, hey, stare at my right hand so you never see what my left hand is doing over here. And you need to look a lot deeper. And for somebody who works in the government like I have for many, many years, it goes so beyond that. So instead of getting caught up in it, just stop participating. Everybody, just stop participating in it. Don't post about it. Don't freaking argue about it. Don't argue with your friends and your neighbors and your family, because more than likely, none of you guys know the truth. And that's the reality of it. At the end of the day, on our deathbeds, relationships are what's going to matter, not if we were right or wrong.
Love that. So I guess what can humans what like can I enjoy my summer? Is it or is the apocalypse going to happen? Like
Well,
like
first, there's a big definitions matter. Okay. And so somebody's definition of the apocalypse is very important. So,
okay.
the apocalypse could be different levels of events, right?
Yeah.
But when you're asking about really about the end of the world kind of stuff, no, you're fine. The world is never going to end, but there will be major, major changes. And it comes in seasons, it comes in waves.
What are some
And we've had
changes?
much practice. Here's the thing that another pattern. Okay, I like patterns because patterns you can analyze, you can see truth in them, you can see facts. Okay. And here is a pattern with God, or whatever you want to call God, the universe, is that we always have practice first. Pay attention to that. There's always practice. Practice relationships, sometimes practice marriage, practice jobs, practice career. Get what I'm saying? Practice
Yeah.
viruses,
Hmm.
practice events like death in the family. How are we going to handle this? Did we unify? Did we separate? And then you get processing time, the process. Okay, what I could have done better, all of those things we reflect. And then the real deal happens. Okay. And so if we've had practice for something like, say, COVID, which wasn't the real deal, it really wasn't. That was just another kind of riot situation in a way.
What wasn't the real deal in terms of what do you mean like it wasn't the real deal?
Meaning it wasn't a virus that was dangerous like they were saying.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
That's a whole other, I mean, my point is this, is that it was practice.
Okay.
So enjoy your lives and learn how to discern and ask for personal revelation on events. There's nothing special about me. Anybody can start to see things in the future or the past or currently. All of us have spiritual gifts. You should just develop them. If you guys need help developing, reach out to me. I love doing that. I love developing other people's gifts and seeing what they're capable of. It's the most powerful thing. And teaching discernment and how to get confirmation, reconnecting that spiritual antenna. That's the more important thing. Instead of asking somebody like me, because you don't know me and you don't know if I'm telling the truth.
Right.
So, what would be more important to ask? How can I know the truth? The things like that versus, is the apocalypse going to happen this summer? No,
Right.
it's not. But are
Okay.
we having domino effects that can cause such events? Yes. Are we in that time period? Absolutely.
What sort of changes are going to happen for us?
How about you ask me in what category? That's a
Um,
lot of information that I don't like to just, dump upon somebody unless they're specifically asking me.
I guess what changes in terms of um, the economy?
What I would say is that if certain events take place, and catastrophic events, let's just say, there is no economy in that, ever. Economy doesn't exist other than a trade and barter system. And a trade and barter system can only occur when people are in complete desperation and where true value starts to lie. And if you look at the agenda of why humans are really here and why we elected to be here during this dispensation of time, it is completely about truth and growth and experience, not right or wrong, just experience. And the darkness and the light is equally important, like we established, okay? And if we're getting back to truth and growth, that would also get back to what is truly valuable. And sometimes the other things have to be stripped down for you to see value. For instance, when Hurricane Katrina happened, it took 24 hours for people to see true value. 50% went into the dark and started attacking their neighbors. Within 24 hours, they attacked their neighbors for food and water out of desperation of survival. They attacked their own family members. The other 50% truly valued and sacrificed for friends and family and neighbors. And they were unified and they grew. And so it doesn't take a whole lot of time for that change to occur. It can happen overnight. It's about how intense the event is. And if we've already had practice on so many levels, eventually the real deal has to happen for the change to occur. Now,
Yeah,
whether that's globally or in a personal experience, it's all happening and it will continue to happen. Everything is intensifying, and anybody can look at that just in science and data. Our experiences are intensifying. Our natural weather is intensifying. The storms,
it
the
is.
the earth, everything is speeding up and intensifying, and everybody knows that and can feel that.
Yeah.
And so that's
Now,
something that everybody should.
no, I was gonna say, I joke with my friends, and we say like, oh, this is the darkest timeline, or whatever. But
No.
what can and you started to sort of say it in terms of like what can people do to heal, so it's not this, like you said, like this 50% of the people are like killing each other and thrashing each other and like destroying the earth. Like what can people start to do to heal and come together? Like, can we be in our highest timeline?
Yeah, we can, but to think that okay, let me share a couple things first. I wanna say that the true definition of sin, okay? I think if we can get down to the lingo and definitions of things, of like darkness or evil, versus sin, right? Those could all be in the same category. The true definition of sin is the removal or manipulation of free will and choice. Okay. So anytime somebody is a true victim, that means that their free will and choice was removed, like a rape victim truly is a victim there.
Okay.
Okay. That is darkness. That's evil. Okay. But somebody who is maybe two consulting adults doing something that a Christian thinks is evil or against whatever their religious views are is not, because they are using their free will and choice. And so for the whole world to get unified or to heal would be a desire of manipulation of free will and choice.
Hmm.
Think about that. That would be like
Interesting.
saying that what I believe and what I believe is right and good, like healing and getting in our highest timeline, that I'm right. And that you shouldn't have free will and choice because I know better than you. Not even God himself does that. Think about that. So, when we start to have understanding that we are all electing the lives, we chose our lives before we even got here.
We
If I was
did.
going to be a starving rape victim in Africa, I knew that before I got here. And this isn't your first rodeo. And this is about growth and experience and how many times. So, all of the information is really important, don't you think? For
Yeah.
instance, if you
Yeah.
walked into a 3-part, let's just say you went to a play and there's 3 parts to this play. There's the beginning act, the middle act, and the end act. And you walk in right in the middle and you don't know shit about the beginning and shit about the end. It's going to be kind of confusing. You're going to play catch
Yeah.
up. And then the person next to you is going to tell you what they kind of can give you a quick recap. That's what's happening here in this world. That's the reality of it. Nobody knows where and who they were before they came here to this world. Why they're here, who they were, what their names were, any of this stuff. And then they ask the person next to them to catch them up. And we adopt all of these viewpoints, okay? And then you walk out of the middle of the play. You don't even get to see the end. So that's pretty confusing. That leaves a lot of people feeling desperate. It also makes them feel right because they asked the person next to them and they got all this information, okay? And then this person over here got a lot of information too. So we're all in this, you know, but in the reality is it goes back to our spiritual gifts of can we connect? Can we get truth? Can we seek after these things? And to get people on a higher timeline, the moral of this tangent here is whatever you believe or whatever you're willing to connect to spiritually. If you don't believe in God or spirit realms or anything like that, that's totally okay. I dig it. But if there was, go experiment with them. Go have a verbal conversation with God. Go have a verbal conversation with the spirit guide. Go test them, experiment with them, put them to the test. And if you do that, then you can grow upon it and test information, test truth. And then you can start asking very, very deep questions like, who was I before I came to this world? What was my name? Why am I here? How many times have I done this? And then you can get even deeper than that. How did God become God? And very, very deep things. And then you might even have some face to face encounters. And that's the reality. But nobody goes to the lengths and nobody's asking the right questions. When you start to understand things like that, like how God became God and why we're here, you wouldn't be viewing the world as fucked up anymore. Excuse my language. The world is
Yeah.
perfectly fucked up. And all that is happening is for a reason of growth and experience. And we're all sitting around judging and pointing fingers, thinking that we're right and they're wrong,
Yeah.
but they're having their own experience here. And when we're always like, oh, what can we do to save the world or help the world or whatever it is, that's a really low frequency to even be viewing the world that way. That's not helping it at all. That's like me having a child and having a 3-year-old go, oh, man, what can I do for you? Like, what's wrong? Like, are you okay? I mean, they're like, shoot, I don't know. Am I? I mean, you would be sending off the frequency to them that something's off about them. Something's not right. And we're all doing it about the world and each other, about our government, about everything. So that's why I'm like, just stop participating in that and focus on yourself and your antenna. That's the only thing you can do to get on your highest timeline is when you connect to that, nothing, Nothing will cause fear. Nothing will disturb you like that. Of course, you'll have some bad days, of course, where you're going to get low and, question things. Of course, that happens to me every day, but in general, when you really get to the grounded truth of things, those deeper questions, none of this phases you the way that it would have before. None of it. You can look at the darkest thing and see light in it and have understanding and compassion towards it.
Mm. Now, I have last few questions. Are you
Go for it.
familiar with the movie Sinners? Have you are you familiar with that
Yes.
movie?
The one that's the
Okay.
series, right?
No, it's the movie with Michael B. Jordan and vampires, and it was set in like Mississippi, like southern Mississippi.
Hmm. I don't know. Maybe I don't. I was thinking of the series, but maybe I have and I just don't. Just tell me about it. Go for it.
So in the movie, it's these vampires, and the vampires have to be invited in. Like they make it a thing in the movie to where the vampires are like, "Can I come in? Can I come in?" And then, of course, if you let them in, they wreak havoc. And I find that interesting because you're saying that any like spiritual guides or angels, if their intentions are good, will ask to be invited in. So I guess I'm just asking, I guess I'm
100%.
looking for clarity there, because like
Yes.
that's what was in that movie, and now I'm like, can you be invited in? Hold on. Like, so like, I guess explain that, like.
That is such a good question. I'm so glad you asked that. Something that God taught me a long time ago was that the right spirit always waits for the invitation. They will never manipulate your free will and choice. They will not force, not even love upon you. Because some people have trauma and can't receive love to the higher capacity. Most of us are at like maybe 38% out of 100. So they will not force it upon you, right? Not even God. And so the right spirit waits for the invitation. Now they are there all the time. Just so everybody needs to know this, that you're never alone. But they're not spying on you in your bedroom when you're in your, doing things. But
Right, right.
they are
I think
there
about that
always.
sometimes as a side note, but yeah.
They're not. And quite frankly, we can this is another very important thing, is that you can set terms. And terms are the same thing as having a contract. We set terms. Here's your roles and responsibilities. If I loan you money, you're going to give it to me at this time. Those are terms. Okay. You can do the same thing with the spirit realm. So, what I would do is I would start with the invitation and be very specific and great detail of who you are talking to
Okay.
and what that definition of who you want to talk to here. Especially if you're experimenting, like trying to find if God is real. I love that. It's like the most powerful place you could be. Okay. Versus trying to fake it like you're a believer. When you don't know and you want to know, oh, there's such power in that. And if you want to experiment, it would be very, very important for you to set terms that I am only speaking to entities and spirit realm that is 100% true and of light.
Okay.
That there would be no opposition, no deceit, no confusion, no low vibrations in this information, that none of that can channel through my home or me. Be very specific. And those spirits have been just waiting this whole time for the invitation. And then another thing I would do is set terms on what it looks like for you. How do you get confirmation? Do you want to hear sounds? Do you want to hear a download in your mind? Do you want to have visions? Do you want to see birds come to your window? Be very, very specific. And people don't even think about this, of being, because they don't want to overwhelm you. Some of these are
Yeah.
your righteous ancestors that have been delegated by God. They're part of your team. They're here to see you succeed. They've just been waiting. So, however you want it, any way you want it, they're going to give it to you, but be specific. Never assume that they know, because that would be manipulation of your free will and choice for them to force upon their methods, their modality, their messaging upon you. So be specific. It's the same thing with God. Okay. We assume God knows because he's this all seeing eye and spying on us. That's not true. That would be manipulation. Just like a parent, if I was spying on my child and her every conversation she had, masturbating, getting dressed, tapping her brain to see her thoughts and where she's doubting. I mean, come on, guys. That's
Yeah.
not how it works, and that's how the world is viewing the spiritual realm. And they're missing a lot of power there by assuming that they know best or assuming that they're going to be giving you these things without you asking.
Okay, and my final question kind of goes with what you just said a little bit, because you said, you know, just invite them in and let and come up with terms and things of that nature. And it's like, so you can develop your spiritual gifts. But it's like, okay, do I just say this out loud? Do I just go outside and say,
I would.
hey, I'm inviting you in? Like, how can people start to develop their
Yes.
spiritual gifts like this?
I think that's just that. Just what you just said is the most simplest and basic, and honestly, it has the most power to it. You know why? Because it's
Why?
authentic.
Okay.
It's authentic, and I think too often we've been taught that we need to give praise and glory to God or to spiritual things as if he's some guru and he needs to have an ego stroke.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just another thing people are not analyzing how they're viewing the spiritual realm or how they're looking at God. Okay. But when we are authentic, whether it's with a best friend, a partner, a mother to a child, and we are keeping it real, we can feel that, right? We feel it in our bodies. We can feel that, damn, like they're sincere. Have you ever had a shitty apology before?
Right. Yeah, of course.
And
Yeah, of course.
and you can feel that it wasn't true.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a difference. And so when somebody shows up questioning and showing up like they are just, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know if you're real. I don't know if you can hear me. Like that's authentic. There's power in that. So anytime, if you're pissed off, if you're disappointed with God or the spirit realm, you're disappointed in all of it, and you don't even believe in God anymore, but you're hoping that God's real, that is such a powerful place to be. But keep it real. Keep it real. Don't try to bullshit it because you lose power in your frequency. And the way that prayer and verbal prayer, okay, when verbal prayer is made, think of it as like a flashlight. Like you're in the dark, okay, because you're in a lower vibration. Let's consider that the dark in the quantum realm, okay? When I start to pray and I'm authentic about it, whether it's pissed, whatever it is, it doesn't matter, okay? I'm turning on my flashlight and then my flashlight starts to shine. And when you have a strong flashlight, like those you see on TikTok sometimes, really strong or military grade flashlights, they are like a
Yeah.
strobe light. I mean, not a strobe light, but a big one, right? And they go
Yeah.
far. It's like your Batman signal.
Hmm.
And that's the way that we should be thinking about it is the more authentic we are, the more power we have in your content, your TikTok videos, your customers, your clients, your family, and with God and spiritual realms.
Mm. So to develop our spiritual gifts, we just have to be authentic to ourselves with it.
An experiment. You have to really seek after it. I mean, I teach people how to develop spiritual gifts in a very short amount of time. I teach spiritual awakening in like 3 days. I actually have a live event coming up in
Yeah,
October
let's talk
19th
about what you
of this
have going
year.
on so that people can know how to get in contact with you and um, you know, if it to develop these things as well.
Yeah, I don't, unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of time anymore these days to do a lot of one on ones and to do live events. But I have one coming up in October, which is kind of rare. I haven't been able to do one in like 5 years, unfortunately. But I also have classes online. I don't even sell them. Like, you can't go to my website and get anything from me, which is
Okay.
terrible. I'm just, but my website is amazingrobyn with a y.com. But you
Okay.
could always email me and say, hey, I'd love to take your class. I'll send it to you. But I'm teaching spiritual awakening. I can teach people spiritual gifts and awakening and blow their mind in 3 days. Like, I'm talking life change, everything in 3 days. How to get into alpha brain, how to unlock things, how to connect to your spirit family, how to know how God became God, like all of that stuff. It can happen in a very, very short amount of time. I was just trying to give your viewers, your listeners, just some practical, free ways of doing this. And it doesn't need to be complicated, guys. I mean, but it is the most critical thing right now in our world, in our society, in our families, in our governments. Because think about it, if we had just that one gift of discernment and confirmation, we would all be voting differently, wouldn't we?
For sure. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. We wouldn't be voting on parties or headlines or what your friends or neighbors thought. We would be voting who had the most truth and light,
The system
who
would be
couldn't be
different.
manipulated. Yeah, everything
Yeah.
would be. And so it's the only way that when we open up our minds to receive the truth of things, the truth of people, how they got here, and taking judgment and labeling out of it and understand, that's power. So just experiment. But if you ever really want to go the whole mile, reach out to me. I have that event. It's a retreat. We all stay together in the woods at a beautiful cabins and just get real deep with each other. And that's it's pretty
Do,
amazing.
do you have like a link or anything for that that I could
I
share?
don't. I don't. But you can go on my website. You can email me. I have free subscriptions where I just send all my stuff out for free. I'm pretty expensive. Let's just keep it real. People to just to talk to me is pretty expensive. Um, but I'm efficient and I'm fast and I go above and beyond for my clients and they're bonded to me for life. So if you wanna know more, just go on my website, subscribe. I'll send you everything I have for free, and I'll tell you when I have live events, and so a lot of times I go on social media, and I do free live healings and readings and things like that too, so because I know a lot of people can't afford it, but I give as much as I can.
For sure. Well, thank you so much, Robyn. I definitely got a lot out of this conversation, and I know my audience for sure got a lot out of this conversation. And
Okay.
as the usual, this is Vision Rebirth. Make sure you guys subscribe and like and share on all platforms. My name is E. You can find me at _real E on all platforms. And this is another episode of Vision Rebirth. And cut.